in the snow. I wouldn't have to finish shooting films that no one wants to show. Rent. That's one of the differences between the two productions. Anyway, in the middle of 1995, after we'd done the studio production, Jonathan was invited to present a couple of songs at this event that was like local opera companies doing songs from their pieces. And you know, they figured Rent is an opera, technically. I mean, it's a rock opera, but it's an opera. And so they invited him to be part of it. And he asked me if I would help him out because they didn't yet have a Roger cast. And he didn't want to like tell a friend of his who might be auditioning to do this, and then he might get his hopes up and confuse people. So he asked me to sing Roger, so I actually sang Light My Candle Another Day, which was kind of fun. The only time I've ever gotten to do that. So I just wanted to pick this little excerpt that gives a little insight, I feel, into where this all came from for Jonathan. This is that night that we have the performance. We sat through some mild-mannered art songs and excerpts from new folk operas, and then it was our turn. I had no idea what this crowd was going to make of our noisier version of opera music. But before I could find out, Jonathan got up in front of the small audience and spoke, his head tilted to one side like a puppy, his hands animated, his voice mellow and clear. I've always loved La Boheme and Puccini's other work, and I've also always loved Billy Joel and Elton John and The Who, and I've also always loved Stephen Sondheim and the medium of musical theater. And I wanted to write something that could incorporate all of those influences. Well, a few years ago, several of my friends came to me and told me that they were HIV positive, and then a couple of them died. And as I was coming to terms with this, I realized I had to write something in response. And so I began to work on Rent. La Boheme was the perfect starting point. Instead of Puccini's artist's garret in Paris, I placed my characters in a loft in the East Village. Instead of consumption, my characters became infected with AIDS. Rodolfo, the poet, became Roger, the lead singer of a failed rock band called the Well Hungarians. Jonathan smiled as the audience laughed. Marcello, the painter, became Mark, the documentary filmmaker. And Puccini's Mimi became my Mimi Marquez, a heroin-addicted S&M dancer. Or actor. I'm very honored to be asked to be a part of tonight's presentation, he continued. I dedicate this work to my friends that I've lost. Thank you. There was a smattering of applause, and we began. I had never heard Jonathan speak at such length about the origins of his show, and as I sang, the power of his words resonated through me. I invited Jonathan to my birthday party at the end of October, and I was happy that he showed up and stayed a long time, socializing and drinking and laughing. I didn't get to talk to him much that night, but after he left, my friend Kevin came up to me and said, "Who was that guy?" "Who, Jonathan?" "Yeah. What's with him?" "What do you mean?" "Well, we were talking, right? And I asked him what he did for a living, and he said to me with a perfectly straight face, he said, 'I'm the future of musical theater.'" I guffawed. "Really?" "Yeah, dude, totally. I mean, what is that about?" I chuckled some more. It was a crazy, bold, wild thing to say. "Well, maybe he's right," I said. Kevin took a swig of his beer. "Yeah, but still. Would anyone want to admit that? I mean, come on." On December 18th, the night before rehearsals began, Jonathan hosted what he called a peasant's feast, a potluck dinner for the cast and crew at his apartment. I put together a salad and headed west. When I got there, Jonathan pulled me aside. "I want you to meet the guy playing Roger. His name's Adam Pascal. We're really excited about him. He's never done anything on stage before, but he's got an amazing voice. He can really sing." "Great," I said, and Jonathan took me to him. "Never done anything? Not anything? This should be interesting," I thought. "Adam," Jonathan said. "This is Anthony. Anthony Adam." "Hey, nice to meet you," Adam said, and grabbed and shook my hand vigorously. "You too," I said. If Jonathan hadn't told me that this guy was playing Roger, I never would have predicted it. His disposition was too outgoing and friendly, and the combination of his dyed blonde hair in a Caesar cut, his close-cropped, dirty blonde beard, and his outfit, a forest green sweatshirt with a medieval-style lace-up collar underneath denim overalls, made him seem to me more like one of Robin Hood's merry men than an ex-junkie wannabe rock star. But I trusted Jonathan. I knew how long they'd sought a good Roger. I looked forward to hearing him sing. When it was time for dinner, we took our seats in mismatched chairs along two long tables that had been set up, and Jonathan rose, clinking his glass so he could make a toast. His head was tilted like it had been at the opera event, but his voice was much softer and his body much more still as he spoke. I invited you all here because every year at Christmas time I have what I call a peasant's feast. Since a lot of my friends and I don't have very much money, it's hard for some of us to go home and be with our families at the holidays. So we began this tradition of feeding each other and bringing each other a little holiday cheer. Well, he continued, this year I wasn't sure what I was going to do because the show was about to go into rehearsals and I wanted to do something to mark that occasion, but I also didn't want to break tradition and not have a peasant's feast. He paused, took a deep breath, and then continued, his voice beginning to waver. I am so grateful to the New York Theater Workshop and to all of you who are a part of this show. This is one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me, getting this production together. It's been a very long time coming. He paused again. I wrote this show about my life, about the lives of my friends, and some of my friends are gone, and I really missed them. He paused again and wiped tears off his cheeks. I guess I just wanted to say that you all are going to bring my friends to life, and I wanted to thank you for that. I wanted to thank you all for being my new friends. That's what I wanted to say.